Good morning, everyone. To tell you a little bit more about where I'm coming from, I grew up in Islamabad, which is the capital of Pakistan. It's a very clean, green, beautiful, bureaucratic city. And it actually looks like this. A friend of mine took this picture. But it also looks like this. Just beyond the manicured lawns and the newly built highways are entire settlements of people who have come from different places and have settled invisibly to find a better life for themselves and for their children. And in Pakistan, these are called kachi settlements. And the word kachi literally means raw or unbaked. And so to say that these are kachi abadis means that they are somehow temporary or movable, even though some of them have been around for about 30 years. My experience of the mobile, nomadic kind of life happened when I was a young professional, and much to my family's confusion, instead of opting for an office-based NGO, I chose what I called my gypsy life. And 3 days a week, I would work in a bank, and 3 days a week, I would work in this very special system of non-formal schools in 8 kachi abadis around Islamabad called the Pehli Kiran School System. And that's what most of them look like. And they catered to different kinds of mobile communities, Afghan refugee communities, internally displaced communities, and just also families of local migrants who had just come looking for work. And my job was to monitor ground operations and to kind of communicate needs to the trustees and to the wider world. And what I found on my rounds was that it wasn't the physical infrastructure that mattered. It was the experience that children had within those spaces that really determined where they were going to go. And not all of those places looked the same. This one was Pehli Kiran School number 4. It was not so happy looking. Children were not as engaged. The community was not as invested. And so one thing that we decided to do was to build a program to inject color and fun and energy in the schools, and to give the children a sense of ownership over that space. And in this picture, they're actually building big canvas resources that teachers also used, but that were strung up as walls for the open air schools. And the children actually, some of them, all they wanted to do was to put a handprint there and say, hey, that's me. So they really, I think the results were quite beautiful. And this is the same school, they're children from the same school. And we had a really dedicated, fantastic team of volunteers who were able to engage the children and provide a meaningful kind of experience. And staff morale was higher, student confidence was higher, and they were more motivated to come to school. So my experience with the Pehli Kiran schools taught a lot of different kinds of lessons that are applicable to the wider world, and I think to much of the Middle East also, where there are massive movements of people and emergencies are becoming increasingly complex and that are urbanizing. For Pakistan, it's been affected by both conflict and natural disaster. 90% of people who are displaced don't live in camps. They live in settlements like this. And about 50% of people living in cities live in these kachi abadis. So the idea behind Cities for Children is that cities are growing, but so is a whole generation of young people who are going to determine what they look like in the future. And it's important to see them and to acknowledge them and to think about them. The little boy wiping your windscreen at the traffic light, or the little girl selling coloring books, has a mind and a personality and a story, and is coming from somewhere. And our philosophy is that every child deserves the right to a childhood, no matter where. even if he or she comes from a not so legal community on the fringes of urban society. And by the right to a childhood, we mean the right to read, the right to play, and the right to feel safe. Each one of these is deeply connected to the others, and we believe in weaving them together to create holistic programs for child development. The way we do this is not by reinventing the wheel or by starting from scratch, but by working with existing organizations like the Pehli Kiran schools, who are working with 1,400 children right now. And the idea is to identify people who are doing great work and to help them do a little more and to do a little better. So of course, we support non-formal learning, but we also believe that kids have the right to be kids and to play. And actually, tomorrow, there's this big annual sports day that's being organized with 500 children coming together from 8 different schools. And I hope it goes well. Fingers crossed for that one. But basically, the idea is to do things that these small, under-resourced organizations might not be able to do otherwise. And one of the most important things there is under our right to feel safe strand. Psychosocial support isn't really recognized or given much attention in Pakistan, at least. And so what we've been doing is to connect mental health professionals with people who work directly with these children and helping staff members to recognize the risks that these kids are exposed to on the streets, including the risks of abuse, neglect, exploitation, recruitment by criminal and militant gangs. And the idea is to kind of address them within the classroom space, and that's the right to feel safe. I love working with children. I think they bring out the best in us, which is the kid in us. And they also, for me, they bring out the sense of optimism. And I think one interesting thing is that the word kachi is also the local word used for preschool in Pakistan, which is the time when kids are forming their first impressions of the world. And I like that, because then suddenly this is a word full of potential, and these kachi spaces are spaces full of potential. So hold that thought, and keep in touch. We're still young, and we're still growing and learning, so help would be appreciated. Thank you.